The first question I wanted to address that was posted on the forum was actually my own, and it basically I asked, how seriously does your organization take the environment and external relations within it? And I said, to this point, our theories have mostly focused on the internal process of firms, and now we're actually focusing on these external environmental or interorganizational kinds of characteristics. And I wanted to get a sense for whether you guys saw times when your firm focused inwardly or outwardly and why that was, and to get your real world experiences. Now, of course, there's no real answer to this. It's not meant. It's a hard question with no clear answer for everyone. But what's nice about the question is that by your responses, I can see a lot of variation, and you can see variation in this. And you can begin to reflect on why it is that some firms do and don't, and why your experiences, or how we could classify those experiences of having these inward or outward foci, and what's driving attention basically within these organizations. So I want to kind of go through what people said and my interpretations of it, and some kind of reflection on it for a minute. Some of you said the focus on internal versus external environments varied by, say, the leader. And so it was kind of a personality thing, depending on the leader, that they would decide which boundary switch or focus they would take. So that's interesting. It's a personality thing. It depends on the individual. So that's one perspective. Similar to that, some of you argued that the focus varied by the position or role. So in this case, the administrative unit of an organization, management, say, or a particular department within an organization would be specifically focused on, say, the external boundary. And that's interesting, and that makes a lot of sense to me that that's feasible within firms that have kind of this division of labor and concern with the outward environment. Others said that it would vary by the industry. And for example, some of you argued that entertainment industry, for example, would always be outwardly focused, or airlines, or any kind of client-serving business, right, where it was for-profit, would probably be highly concerned with the environment. Oppositely, some of you said no, government agencies or would, or even educational institutions were highly inwardly directed in terms of what they are concerned about, and it's mostly because the legal contracts of exchange are established between organizations or between, say, a federal system allocating funds automatically. But there was some debate on that, and so I did notice that some of the nonprofits or the governmental organizations actually did have a concern with the environment, particularly like national parks and the like, that Lottie mentioned. And notably that those kind of concerns within the government are actually at the periphery in terms of the hierarchy of concerns of these governments. So, for example, in California, with the budget crisis, the state parks are actually shut down and they don't have as many employees there. But in order to get by, even in times of feast, they still didn't have enough money to do as many things as they wanted, and they had to do kind of alliances and network forms of organizing. Next week, we'll talk about this in particular, in order to get by and to provide services. So they subcontract out food service or cleaning, and then the forest rangers would take care of the park. So, I mean, it's feasible that different structures, even within the governmental agencies, might be outwardly or inwardly oriented. However, I think if you're at the margins, like of hierarchy of needs or concerns like environmental issues, the outward focus is a way to garner resources or to pool them and have a say in situations where maybe you're not valued as much as you should be. And vice versa with firms that are highly bureaucratized, that maybe an inward focus is feasible for those kinds of government agencies. So industry will matter, but so will the kinds of circumstances in which those industries are experiencing. Another reason to focus outward was cited as the context, and by this context and the environment, and I want to try to elaborate this a little bit because in some cases firms are within a competitive environment, and this can kind of force them to be highly concerned with external relations in the environment. So, for example, someone mentioned the bipolar industry of airplane manufacturing, of Boeing and Eads. And here you have two firms competing for a lot of the same business, and they're highly concerned with what the other one does. And that made sense to me, that the context of competition would lead to that. But another feature of context could be like, say, a recession or a depression, that the loss of resources makes firms very concerned with seeking new kinds of resource sources out in the environment. So, I mean, the context itself and the environment itself can dictate where you focus. And a final theme seemed to come out as well in your answers about how the focus varied over time, how attention shifted over time. And it depended on where problems and complexity resided for each firm. So I like the example of mining, where someone said that the environment mattered greatly at one phase of getting access to a land. And then another as well, that in order to have some kind of expensive infrastructure like roads for multiple mines, they pooled together. So they worked in the environment with each other in order to accomplish that. But in other times, you can imagine where the internal attention shifts to just mining operations, getting it done for that particular mine. So in a way, I'm kind of thinking that all of these answers really apply and are salient, but that the idea that you switch depending on where the issues exist or where the greatest action is for a firm, where the greatest salience is, and where there's ambiguity and problems, that's where you're going to focus a lot of your attention. And in a lot of these cases, that's going to be the kind of environmental boundary, whether internal or external, that these organizations shift and focus. It just so happens that the next 3 weeks we're going to focus on organizational theories that concern primarily the environment.